So I just want to kind of get an idea of your background. And here's the three things I want to know from you. How long have you been with American Republic? And I have people that have been here for one day and people have been for a year, whatever it is. How long have you been with American Republic? What industry you were in before you came in the insurance industry? So sometimes people will say, well, I've been in insurance for 15 years. I was P&C agent. Okay. Well, what industry were you in before you got insurance? Does that make sense? So whatever you did before you got, well, this is the only job I've ever had. I was in college before that. Well, then that's what you did before you got insurance. Okay. So whatever you did before you got insurance, and then the one thing you want to get out of here. In other words, when you heard you were coming and you packed and you drove or you're on the plane, in your mind, most of us were thinking, gee, I hope I learned something about prospecting, writing a business plan, handling objections, presentation. Now, this is a sales training. It's not product training. We will discuss product as it relates to making presentations. But most of us have some one thing that we kind of have an issue with, building our confidence, whatever it is. That one thing you want to get, I want to write that down. Can we do that? Is that fair? Dave, can I start with you?
Sure.
All right. So how long have you been with American Republic?
1 month.
1 month, all right. And what industry were you in before you got here?
Healthcare,
Healthcare?
delivery, and finance.
And that means, what did you do?
I worked for Blue Cross Blue Shield for 16 years.
Oh, did you?
As a manager of Medicare and Medicaid and underwriting and actuarial.
Okay, well, that's who you asked your underwriting questions to. No, just kidding.
And a couple years with Eli Lilly.
And so how did you, sales, I mean, I understand the healthcare and
Yes.
the underwriting, but how do you get involved?
In recent
sales?
years, I've teamed up with an elder lawyer, and her and I, of course, address senior needs. And all of a sudden, it became obvious that some senior products would be a very good complement to our services. And so I started on the insurance route.
Okay. So before you were doing the insurance, what were you and elder lawyer doing with people?
She, of course, was writing wills and power of attorneys and trusts and healthcare powers, and I was addressing government benefits such as Medicare and Medicaid.
Oh, okay.
And
So like as a consultant?
exactly.
Okay, all right. Well, that brings some good experience to the table. What's the one thing you'd like to get out of here? What's the one thing you like on Friday when you walk away, you think, okay, I got that answer.
Gain more confidence sales approach and delivery. Having never been a salesman before, I think I could use a little bit of that.
Well, I appreciate you having the courage to say that in a room full of strangers. A lot of guys, we have egos, and I think confidence is a big issue. And we're going to discuss, in fact, a lot of this morning is going to be centered around that whole concept of confidence. Because it's kind of like making phone calls. If one of the ways you're going to prospect is making phone calls, the very first phone call you make, we're usually pretty excited and pretty motivated, and it comes across in our voice. And if you make 20 phone calls and you don't get an appointment, and you make 40 and you don't get an appointment, how well is your delivery on the 51st phone call? And that's kind of the key, is to sustain that same level of delivery from the first to the 51st one. And having confidence in what we're doing probably plays more of a role, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. I appreciate you sharing that. Gail?
Yes.
How long have you been with American Republic?
I have been with American Republic about 7 months.
Woo.
I worked in the trucking industry before that.
Do you mind if I ask what that means?
I was office manager for a 50-unit trucking company, ran 48 states.
Oh my gosh. So you're used to things not going right?
I'm used to numbers. I did all the payroll, the
Okay.
taxes. I'm a numbers person.
Well, got insurance. What a match for you, huh?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And what's the one thing you'd like to walk out of here with? The one thing you want to know the most about?
There's a lot of things I need help with. Never
I don't know if I'm that
having
intelligent. So
Never
what would one
having
thing be?
been in sales
Okay.
like this before, I think one of the things I have the hardest trouble with is not feeling like I'm nosy when I'm asking them for personal information.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's very hard, once I get the appointment, I'm never sure what questions are going to be appropriate and what are going to make them angry.
Right.
But I know I need answers to all of them.
I can understand that. And is part of that the sense that, what are they going to think if I ask this?
Not, yeah, are they going to think that I'm just being nosy, or are they going to think that I need this information to get them the best quote I can?
And that has, ironically, could that have an effect on your confidence in the way you
Oh,
ask questions?
certainly.
Yeah.
Certainly.
It's funny how that red line kind of runs through for all of us. Well, I think we can help you with that. In fact, we're going to discuss some of that this morning, but as we go through the next couple of days, we're going to talk a lot about that. You know, the interesting thing about questions is what do you think the purpose of questions are?
Find out information.
It's fact finding.
The questions gather information. And we'll discuss some of the concepts. I'm real big on words. I like to make sure I understand what you meant by what you said, and I like to convey to you what my understanding was. Now, what you meant may be different than what I heard you say. So words are important, but we'll talk about asking questions, and I think we can help you with some of that. William or Bill?
Bill.
Bill, okay.
I've been with the company, a little over a month, something like that.
Okay.
And I've been in the insurance business for about going on 3 years.
Okay.
Before that, I was in the mortgage business for 8 years, both as a loan officer and as a sales manager. And before that, in the healthcare field for 15 years.
What'd you do in healthcare?
Sold medical equipment to nursing homes and hospitals, traveled worldwide, nationwide.
So you have a little inside knowledge of how those systems work.
You mean the systems that I sold?
Well, like nursing homes and, yeah.
Basically, we sold lifting and bathing and lifting equipment for the
Oh.
elderly and the handicapped. And been selling since I was 10 years old, so
So
I'm an old pro.
dominant buying motives for seniors and issues that may affect the benefits they get from Medicare supplements, long-term care, those type of policies.
You know, types of
you'd be able to
senior.
relate with.
Very little health insurance,
Right.
some health insurance, but very little, mostly specializing in the senior market when it comes to final expense, supplements, also the Medicare Advantage plans, Part D program. Basically, I'm not bragging, but I'm an expert in that. We've had so much training in that, it's unbelievable.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't think it's bragging to say what you're confident in. It's-
Well,
you should be,
just,
yeah.
I mean, because of the nature of the beast, that you gotta go to, every company has more and more and more and more and more training on all that because of the
Right.
problems that have developed from unethical salespeople, so they make you train more and more and more, so.
And what's the one thing you'd like to get out of here?
Well, to learn a little more about how some of the sales skills will work in, when it pertains to health insurance, since I've sold some of it, but not, that wasn't my main
It's not how you
area.
pay your bills.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we can do that. Christy, can I go up to you?
Sure.
How long have you been with American Public?
Approximately 5 months.
Okay. And what industry were you in before?
PNC for 6 months and telemarketing before that.
Okay. So does telemarketing mean that you're comfortable on the phone?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So one of the ways you may see yourself prospecting would be to make phone calls, make appointments?
Yes.
Okay. And what's the one thing you'd like to get out of this?
Motivation.
Okay. Do you mind if I ask what you mean by motivation?
I tend to get too comfortable when I have a sale, and I lose the motivation of getting the next sale.
And what do most salespeople do as soon as you make a sale? Go home, right? Yeah. But when are you at your best? When's the best time to make a sale? Yeah, right after you make a sale, because your senses are up. You're reading body language, you're hearing voice inflection, you're noticing the buying signals. But most of us, as soon as we make a sale, we tend to do what?
Take off.
Yeah, take off phone. Yeah. So, well, we'll talk about motivation. And as we go through this morning, motivation's kind of an interesting issue. I would consider any training I did to be a failure, in my opinion. if when it's over with, people walked out and said, gee, I'm really motivated. And I'll tell you why. I know it seems kind of weird, but is motivation a factor of feeling? If you feel motivated about something, is that a factor of feeling? Feeling, okay. And do you feel, are feelings a result of some kind of interaction or reaction to something or someone, Frank, would you say? Okay. So here's my concern. If as a result of your interaction in this training over the next 3 days, you leave with the feeling of being motivated, what happens next Thursday at 7:15 at night when you've made 4 presentations and you haven't got a sale? And the stimulus, the reason that you felt motivated, which is the interaction in the class today, is not there. Then what happens to motivation? Kind of goes, right? So the reason I kind of, remember I said I like words? What I hope when I do a training is that people walk out inspired. And here's what I mean by inspired. A commitment, in my opinion, this is my definition, doesn't have to be yours, but a commitment is what you do long after the feeling you had at the time you made the commitment has left you. Does that make sense? So the reason I'm interested in the one thing that you want to get out of this is because my experience is, if that's your issue, and we help provide you enough information, or help you come up with one concept regarding that issue that you will go back and do, will you be motivated to do it, or will you be inspired to go do it?
Inspired.
Inspired. So I would hope that you would walk out inspired to go do one thing. And just do it long enough. You know, scientifically they say if you do something for 27 days, it becomes a habit. So, well, I believe we'll be able to help you with motivation. But more important, I'm hoping we can move motivation to inspiration so that once you pick up whatever that one thing is going to be for you, that you will do it. And I'm going to use that word a lot over the next few days because will is very important. I hate going to trainings where they say, you have to do it this way. You have to make phone calls this way. You have to use a script. You have to present this way. Because I understand what straight commission means. And what a straight commission means. What does that mean to you guys? Yeah, that means I don't have to do it that way. You may want me to do it that way, and I might be socially appropriate. You know, in the office I'm going, and I'm thinking, you're an idiot. I'm never doing that. And when I go out in the field, what am I going to do? I'm going to do exactly what I'm going to do, right? So, for example, I'm a door knocker. Now, I can do the phone. I'm pretty good on the phone, and I teach phone clinics. But for my personal life, when I sell, I'm a door knocker. I'm going to go door to door. So if you hire me and you say, okay, the only way you can succeed in this business, you have to make phone calls. I'm going to look at you and go, And then what am I going to do when I go back home?
Knock doors.
I'm going to go knock on doors. Yeah. Now, my guess is if I have production, you're probably going to say what?
Good job.
Okay. But so I would not come across to you and say you have to do it this way. But my guess is that you're going to go back and you're going to do what you will do. And that's why, again, I say this isn't about me. You're not interested in hearing how wonderful I am. You're interested in hearing a technique or a process or some procedure that I did in the past that you could see yourself doing and make successful for you. Does that make sense? Okay, the lecture's over. Tony or Anthony?
Tony,
All right. How long have you been with American Republic?
2 months.
And what industry were you in before?
I did heavy equipment operating.
Ooh. You ever watch that on cable where they do the heavy equipment stuff and they got the diggers with wheels that big? You know, my son and I are sitting there looking at it. We'd like to run into a house with that sucker. Chuckle. That's good. We never really do that. And what one thing would you like to get out of this?
Better on the close.
The close. What's kind of interesting about the close? Well, I think the close is an issue for a lot of people. And what's interesting about the close to me is, in some ways, and I'm not saying this is true for everybody, but in some ways, if you've been in sales for more than a year or two, have you always kind of had the perception that the sale is like a stage? And that, for example, you're on the stage, you take a sales job, and that's the stage. And then the curtain goes up, and you're in the approach. And the curtain goes down, the curtain goes up, and you're in the qualification. The curtain goes down, the curtain goes up, and you're in the presentation. The curtain goes down, the curtain goes up, and you're in the close. Have y'all had that? And the truth is, the sale is just one fluid motion. And we'll talk a lot about the close, more of that tomorrow, although we're going to hit a lot of it today, because there's actually a place where the close first occurs, and where do you think that is? The very first contact. The close begins at the very first contact. And once we get that concept that the close starts at the first contact and the sale process, in fact, one of the things I would encourage you guys to do is to get rid of, or suspend, not get rid of, because you won't get rid of something until you believe it. Suspend 2 thought processes. Suspend the concept if you could, just for 3 days. You're welcome to go back to it on Monday, but for the next 3 days, suspend the concept that the product has anything to do with the sale. Because the product, and even product knowledge to some extent, has absolutely nothing to do with the sale. The truth is, if we do our job properly, the product that people, what's the word that we're going to use? The product that the people will buy reveals itself as a result of us doing our job properly. And the second thing I would encourage you, particularly if you're new, you've only been here a month or 2 months, quit trying to make sales. In some ways, I think we make a mistake as an industry, maybe as a company, and we bring you guys on and talk about making a sale. And I know, I mean, I'm 53, but I can think back to when I first started insurance when I was 21 years old. I know that while my thought process is I need to make a sale, I knew that if I couldn't get in front of somebody that was willing to listen to me and had the ability to write a check, what would not happen? Yeah, I wouldn't get the sale. So, you know, we're going to train you. I'm going to train you in the order that I want you to do things. Because the most important thing for you to do is feel comfortable and confident getting in front of people. Forget the sale. If you make enough presentations, you'll trip over sales. And the good thing about the 21st century, you know, 2000 and beyond, is when I started in the insurance industry, we didn't have things like cell phones. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have MapQuest. We didn't have GPSs. We didn't have direct mail. We didn't have internet leads. We didn't even have telemarket leads. Excuse me. In fact, when I started in the insurance business, and I would go out to Mexico, Missouri, or Macon, Missouri, or Wentzville. If you haven't been to Wentzville, you need to go to Wentzville. I'd go to Wentzville, Missouri, and what I'd do is I'd go to the first Greasy Spoon restaurant I could find with my renewal cards. And did you know that back in 1977 there wasn't even FedEx? What we do is we'd find the brown truck. Who knows the brown truck? UPS. We'd find the UPS guy and I'd buy him breakfast. Lay out my, because the renewal cards we had back then, and probably, I think it still happens today, the addresses would be like Rural Route 1, Box 15, turn right at the green barn, and left at the broken oak tree. Anybody ever had directions like that?
Oh, yeah.
So, well, I'd buy the UPS guy biscuits and gravy because the Greasy Spoon restaurants have really, really good biscuits and gravy. And he'd go through my cards and he'd tell me where everybody lived. Or you become professionally lost. So sometimes as soon as we become a highly trained licensed professional, we lose our ability to communicate as human beings. I like being professionally lost because people tend to like to help people. You know, it empowers people to help them. That's why when you walk in a house or a business, if they offer you something to drink, you should never refuse it. They're opening up hospitality. You should never refuse that. Nobody says you have to drink it. Always take the drink. You know, but I'd go up to a door and say, "Can you help me out? I'm trying to find Bob Smith and Ella." And I've had people bring me in their house. They got the map out. They're mapping my whole thing out. And that's funny how that works. So, and how do we get on that subject there? The close. It's one. I do that a lot. Remember I told you? It's one fluid process, the sales process. So if you could suspend the concept of product or sales for the next 3 days, then I think you might be able to pick up that one concept you're looking for. Thank you for sharing that. Tony, right? Or Anthony?
Anthony,
Okay, Anthony. How long have you been with American Republic?
just over a month right now.
Okay. And what industry were you in before insurance?
I was a high-rise window cleaner.
A what?
High-rise window cleaner.
Wow. So you got on one of those
Is he
scaffold
insurable?
things?
We did that. We just threw ropes over the sides of buildings sometimes. Sat on some wood boards and went to town.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to a man. Anybody that would throw a rope over a side of the building and drop down, this guy's going to prospect, I can tell you. I got a door-to-door guy in my hand right here.
Has no fear. Has no fear.
So, a rope, drop off the side of the building, go sell insurance. How did that happen?
Well, I started having seizures, and the last place you want to be when you have seizures is on the side of a building.
Yeah,
So.
that would not be good.
See, that kind of you ever heard the old saying, if common sense was common, common sense, or do you have common? If common sense was common, more people would have it. There's a guy with common sense. So you start having, did that pass? I mean, do you still have them? Or?
As long as I take medication for it, I'm okay. It's not
Okay.
epilepsy or anything like that. It's
Well,
actually kind of a flu
excuse me. Yeah, between you and I, okay? Because they can't hear us in here. Okay. I had polio when I was a kid. So when I worked the senior leads, I have a cane, and I use that to go to the door, and I limp a little bit more.
Whatever works.
Yeah, so, the seizures, we might talk about how that might work for you. No, I'm just kidding. And what's the one thing you'd like to get out of this? What'd you
Try-
come?
a little better at the cold call
Hmm?
aspect of it. Try to generate more leads for myself.
Okay, good. Cold call, more leads. Yeah, it's a funny thing about this business. We don't have someone to present our product to. That's called
No sale.
unemployed, right? And that's kind of the misnomer in this business. You sit, you do your pre-licensing study, you sit for the state test, and when you pass the state test, what do they give you?
Piece of paper.
They give you a piece of paper that says you are now a highly trained licensed professional. We take that paper home. We wake up on Monday morning. Now I've got my own business going here. Oh, I don't have any customers. How'd that work out? So yeah, we have to get in front of more people. And when you say cold calls on the phone, in person, how do you mean that?
Walk and talk on the phone, however,
Okay.
Just-
What do you feel like you're going to be more comfortable with?
To be honest with you, I think I'm better in person than I am on the phone.
Somehow I knew that. Okay. Well, we'll kind of talk about all of it. My experience is to build a career. And the difference between a career and a job, J-O-B, Jackass the Boss. Everybody have one of those jobs before? Is the job is short term. And those are the people who are looking to go out and make a quick sell because when they signed up and they paid their $250, they could barely afford that. And if they don't get some money in the next week or so, they're going to be, the difference between broke and poor? Broke, you can still get credit. Poor, you don't even have credit. So the short termers are just looking for the quick buck. The long termers learn all the skills. My suggestion is to pick one market, one lead type, one product, and one presentation and become proficient at that. I mean, I know we have a good portfolio of products, and back in your offices they talk about that, but the truth is, in my experience, I'm not saying it's true for you, but in my experience, if you can't pay your house payment and your car payment selling one product, the chances of you paying your house payment and car payment trying to learn all the products is going to be slim to none. So learn one market, one lead type, one product, one presentation, one close, and become proficient at that, and then add the other things on. So you may want to start off with walk and talk and develop your phone skills and your other marketing skills as you go along. Let's go with Michael. Did I do you, Linda? Did I do you? This means yes. Okay, I have one rule throughout the school. This means yes, this means no. This means I ain't going to commit to that guy yet. Did I do you?
No.
Okay, Michael, you have to wait. Linda, go ahead.
I've been with American Republic now about 4 weeks,
Okay.
and before that, kind of all of the above. I have,
So you jumped off buildings with a single bound?
No.
Ran heavy equipment?
but I did, well, yes I have, it's American. I have a small trucking company with my husband, interestingly enough. And
Oh, you
ran
still do
all
that? You still have
Yeah,
that?
I still
Okay.
have that. We have our own authority, and we're just now down to one truck. We did have 5. But for many, many years, I was in human services,
Okay.
determining eligibility, doing investigation. Worked in medical, worked in social security, disability.
And what's the one thing you're looking to get out of this?
All of it. I want to learn how to sell. I want sales skills. I want to know how to prospect.
All right, I think we can help you with both of that. We'll talk a lot about prospecting, a lot of different ways of prospecting. And we will discuss sales skills. I'm more concerned about those skills being related to the prior experiences you bring to the table. I think each of you brings skills and talents to the table that will benefit you in running your business. So I want to make sure that we talk about how we can take the skills you already have and assimilate them to this business to kind of get you off to a fast start. Michael?
Yes, sir. Well, I've been with the company for about 4 months.
Okay.
Before that, I was in construction most of my life. Had general contractor's license in California, built houses, dug ditches,
Okay.
beat my fingers up, broke my back.
Ooh, you broke your back?
No, I mean.
And so you jump off the building with him or something?
Metaphorically speaking.
I see, all right.
And, you know, decided to change into something else. So,
And what's the one thing you're looking to get out of this today?
well, I want to be able to increase the percentage of my sales with my efforts that
Oh.
I have. Because I'm making a lot of effort, but I'm not closing as many as I want to. I feel like I should be able to have a really wonderful product,
Okay.
and I have a good base of leads and clientele. I just feel like I can do better at the close with this. And I'm watching you for 10 tips for success. And I've got a list going already. I already got 2.
You already got 2, huh?
That's right. So,
All right, well, see me at the break, because I charge $12.50 for each one of them.
I-
In cash, by the way. You're a salesman, so I wouldn't take a check. But let me tell you a quick story. I'm in here in November of last year with Jeff Holloway, you know, who's our senior vice president. And he and I are working on a presentation, and my wife's in here getting the food ready and stuff, you know, because she's always helped me with my business. And Jeff says something about one of the words in the presentation, and I challenged him and said, well, this is why I'm doing it. So he turns around to my wife and he asks her the question. Has anybody worked with Jeff? Jeff is a real question person. So he says, well, let me ask you, Debbie, if you were a customer, and then he asked the question. Now, my wife's been married to me for a long time. So he asked the question, and she looks at him and doesn't answer. And he just does the awkward pause. He keeps looking at her, because that's how you get people to answer. And after a couple of minutes, he says, well, it'll work better if you answer. And she says, well, why? You're a salesman. You all lie. Huh. Let's see, honey. This may not be the best way for job security and promotions. It's calling your boss, your husband's